My name is Gary Bontrager. I'm your host at Mindset Growth Podcast. I have Heather, my co-host, here with me today.
Hello.
How are you doing, Heather?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fine. Just ready for as much as we needed this rain and this weather. Nothing beats sunshine. Like it to dry out a little bit. It's just better for spring sports and outdoor activities. Everybody's tired of being inside, I believe.
Yep. Now we're dealing with a little bit of wet ground, but that's okay, I'm sure. That's
going to work out. Couple of things that come to mind when I look at this next guest. Probably it's interesting when you have a position that he has, a lot of people know you that you don't know, and you get critiqued on a very public stage.
Yeah.
One thing I've had the privilege of doing is just in passing meeting, because one of the most memorable experiences that I had in my younger life was coaching USSSA baseball and taking 8 and 9-year-olds all the way up through. And we did it in the local communities. And so it was just so much fun then to take those kids over to watch an Iowa baseball game, and at 9 and 10 years old.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Seeing those kids, watch these superstars going, I can throw a baseball like that someday and do those fun things. And it was a fun, motivational experience for them. Still have photos on my phone of my son getting autographs from our guest and other people, the players at the time, a couple years ago. So without any further ado, we want to bring in Rick Heller, head baseball coach at the University of Iowa for the Hawkeyes. So welcome, Rick. We appreciate you joining us on the podcast.
Well, thanks, Gary. Thanks, Heather, for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we love your background there.
Thank you.
Nice
Yeah,
wrap.
it's nice.
Interestingly enough, I grew up about 15 miles from, the stadium, live a little closer than that to it now. One thing that kind of ran deep in this part of the country is usually the Hawkeye DNA. And so people are always very supportive. We don't have any professional sports in our state, so it seems like the colleges get a lot of attention. Certainly Iowa State gets attention as well, more so now because we're in such an agricultural community, and that's kind of their niche that they follow. But from a sports perspective, Heather, I would say we've always been pretty strong Hawkeye fans.
Absolutely, yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up, Rick.
Well, first of all, I'm married. My wife's name is Rachel. She sells farmland for Hertz. And
Excellent.
Was a country girl and grew up on a milk farm, and but she does a great job doing that. And I have three daughters, two older daughters that are out of college and have families. One in Kansas City, Tara, and then one in Tampa, Alyssa. They both have 2 kids, 4 grandkids, and then we have a 14-year-old daughter, Vivian, at home, and she wrestles and plays softball.
Oh, wow.
And the wrestling is fairly new, but and we're not I was a basketball player, my wife's a basketball player, so probably the best thing, because we just say good job and go
right. You can't get involved in the coaching side of it.
But I grew up in Elden, Iowa.
Oh, okay.
Familiar with that? That's the home of the American Gothic.
Yep.
Yes.
And for a while, Tom and Roseanne's Diner, and things were pretty crazy in town during that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's where I grew up. I went to Cardinal of Elden, and then I went to
Cardinal's a great school.
yeah. It's interesting. It's out in the country, and so it's Elden, Batavia, and Agency are the 3 towns that.
Yeah. My daughter did some travel softball, and the team was it was considered Cardinal. So she got to go see that awesome auditorium and gym that they have there. Yeah,
they have a nice setup. They now have a nice indoor training area for softball and baseball with turf. So yeah, it's good. We were pretty good in baseball when I was there in 1981. We played in the state championship game and had a 1-run lead in the last inning with 1 out, and ended up losing on a rally by Key Lansing. And if you're Iowa baseball fan. Gene Schultz's team won probably 15 state championships in his career, and second winningest coach in the nation. But anyway, yeah. And then I went to Upper Iowa to college, and was it was a different era. But I wanted to play more than one sport, so I played football, basketball, and baseball at Upper Iowa.
Oh, wow. You were busy.
Yeah.
I don't know if they let you do that anymore. A couple of things.
Hard to do.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. I think occasionally, and I don't believe we're in the same district. My kids went to Mid Prairie, and I know we would play Elden occasionally in a preseason game in football, and it just seemed like they always had a lot of tough farm kids in that, and it was always a big battle if you come up against them. So my question to you is, if you mentioned earlier basketball, how'd you end up picking baseball to be the sport that you were going to coach?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I love to play. I mean, I really, really love to play. And when teachers would ask you at 12 years old, hey, what are you going to do when you grow up? And it's like I was going to play baseball or football or basketball.
Right.
They'd kind of laugh at you. And what are you going to do in college? I said, well, I'm going to play all three. And they're just laughing at me. and I knew at an early age that if I didn't have the opportunity to play professionally, and even if I did, my after job would be something in athletics. I love baseball the most, and I actually coach football at Upper Iowa. I mean, we're going to probably get into more of that, but my first college job was the head coach at Upper Iowa, my alma mater, and I had to be the residence hall director for 2 years, the first 2 years. And I told Mike McCready, who was the AD, that if he didn't get me out of the residence hall, I was going to go back and coach high school again. And so he called me over and said, what do you think about coaching receivers for football and, head baseball, assistant football? And I said, well, you're going to have to give me at least a couple days each week in the fall for baseball. So they gave me Thursday and Sunday. But I coached football for 10 years at Upper Iowa. And then when I did my student teaching, I did it at Turkey Valley High School for another Elden guy named Ron Weimer. I got hurt in football my junior year, and, bad enough that I was nervous it was going to hurt my baseball. And I was hoping to have a chance to, get drafted or signed to play baseball. So I was hesitant to play my senior year in football. And he called me and said, hey, if you don't play, come help me coach over here. So I coached.
Wow.
My first coaching job was a football job with Ron Weimer, and we went to the state championship game, got beat by Wapsie Valley. And then I also, my last 2 years of college, I coached with another Hall of Fame coach, Pat Bowman, was at North Fayette. And then he eventually went to Maquoketa Valley, where he ended his career. But I worked for him as the JV assistant varsity for 2 summers while I was still in college. So, and then I was a high school coach the first year out of college, and then got lucky and got hired at Upper Iowa. But I didn't know for sure, because I was also the head basketball coach at Bakersfield High School in Bakersfield, Missouri, which was my first teaching job right out of college. And it just happened that I got lucky. And at the time, a lot of people told me I was crazy, but I was going to work at basketball camp at Upper Iowa that summer, first year out, first full year out of college and teaching. And I tried to call the coach that was running the basketball camp, Bill Prohaska. I got the wrong number, and it was Mike McCready, the AD. And we were just chatting, and Mike said, hey, the baseball job's going to come open. Would you be interested? And I said, oh, for sure. He said, well, 70% of it's going to be the residence hall. I said, I don't care, if you guys would have me. So I ended up interviewing, and I think only 4 people interviewed, and they didn't hire me because I was anything special. I don't think anybody wanted it. It was a tough job, and they'd won, 4 games the year before, and things were not going well there. And, but I knew how the baseball world worked. It's very difficult to get into college coaching. And to be a head coach at 23, 24 years old, I was going to roll the dice. And after playing there, I felt like I knew what we needed to do to be successful, and that we could be successful. And so my only question to the AD was, if we do well, will you keep helping us and add support? And because we needed a lot, field work, stuff like that. And he said, yeah, for sure. And so all the people in my circle said, you're crazy, just stay at the high school. That's a dead end job. You'll never get another job. And so I said, I'm going to roll the dice and take it. And the best decision I ever made.
I've got a question for you there. You said that you were 22 or 23 when you took that head coach job at Upper Iowa? Yeah,
23. I got hired in August, and my birthday's in September. So
okay.
I was 23 and turned 24.
Okay. So what was that like, trying to gain respect of players that are your age and just a couple years younger?
It was the biggest challenge, obviously, because there were guys that I'd actually played with on the team.
Okay.
And so I had the standards that I wanted to set day one. So when we had the meeting, I basically told those guys, here's the deal. It's not going to be the same. You're going to have to look at me as the coach. I'm not going to be your friend, at practice and those types of things. I really had to separate myself. And I said, listen, if you're going to have a problem listening to me or, whatever, doing whatever I ask you to do, then this isn't going to work. And honestly, those guys, they wanted to win too, and they knew things needed to change. And so really it was just a team effort. And, we started building the culture day one. And we talked about the fact that first year there was no recruiting season. So it was whatever was there. And we talked about the fact that team was going to be responsible for fixing the field up and doing those types of things. And when we won our first championship, it was going to be in large part because those guys changed the culture and bought in. And that's how I've done it since day one, and just tried to really improve. It's a culture-based, development on and off the field program from day one. And those guys, thank goodness they bought in, they listened. And, I remember I had a guy on the team that I actually played with in high school, and he was a really good player. And at times he would be a little bit lazy. And I put in a rule where, like, if you walked, we were going to sprint to first base. We were going to play hard. We're going to sprint everywhere. And he looked at me and he said, Rick, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but I'm going to do it because you asked me to.
We're getting ahead of the script on a few things, but there's so many things that are coming up, and I'll come back to this, and maybe Heather, we need to come back. But the one thing is, Rick has said a couple of times he got lucky.
Yeah.
And there is an element of luck, but there's also preparation that causes those roads to meet. I want to come back to that. Culture and separating yourself from your athletes. We see it in business, which is the culture we're in a lot, is business coaching, is where owners will fraternize with employees, and it breaks down credibility. And it causes all kinds of problems with lack of leadership. So there's a couple of things there I want to come back to, but let's real quick, just for the audience, there's a question we ask everybody, and that is, do you have a morning routine?
Yes, but because of the Iowa City School District not starting school till 8:50 and having a daughter that I don't get to see very often, it throws a wrench into the routine that I'd like to be able to do, because a lot of days it kind of fluctuates. I like to get to the office early. I like to get up. And when I get up, I usually try to do some setups and push-ups, do something just in case I don't get a workout that day, that I've done something, and then have a cup of coffee, shower, breakfast, out the door, get to the office early and get rolling, because with my job, a lot of things come up that I don't have control over during the course of the day. People show up, people do this, people come in, they need you right now. So I try to get the bulk of the stuff I need to get done early. But with her not starting school so late, I like to be able to spend time with her in the morning because sometimes I don't see her much at night with my job. I'm gone a lot. We don't have a day off from January 15th until we're done playing in June. And then you go right into recruiting season. And then same thing in the fall. The falls are crazy and no weekends off. And so I modify it a little bit. And then 2 or 3 days a week, I'll either take her to school or have breakfast with her or do something like that. But that's kind of the routine we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting. I mean, that's usually what happens when children are involved. You've got to adjust and adapt on some of those things and just be real intentional about it. So that's kind of the one thing that we see. I kind of just lost my train of thought on a question I had right there. Okay. We're going to do a couple of rapid fire questions. This was not in the script sent to you, and then we'll fire away and go from there. I'll let you start with that, Heather.
Which do you prefer, summer or winter?
Summer.
Excellent.
Stay busy, don't you?
It's just nicer. Nothing hurts your hands more than a baseball sting.
Well, if you had to play 37 years of spring baseball like I have,
yeah,
I don't want to be cold anymore.
Yeah, it's no longer fun.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we'll be out Saturday if we have to play a doubleheader, which it looks like with the weather.
Yeah, Sunday's looking.
People don't realize you're stretching almost 2 hours 45 minutes before the game for batting practice, and then three plus hour game, 45 minutes, and another 3+ hour game, and then all the stuff after. And those are brutal days if it's 35 degrees and the wind's blowing.
Right, and the wind often blows in the spring.
Yeah.
What historical figure would you like to spend the day with if you had that opportunity?
Historical figure I'd like to spend the day with if I had the opportunity. Abraham Lincoln would be a good one.
Would it? Okay.
Yeah.
His name comes up a lot when we ask that question.
Interesting times that he lived in.
People like to write a lot about who he was and how he was. It'd be interesting to see if he was.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
I like to read about him, and then Henry Ford's another one, and you read these books and you realize it's just people. A lot of them are based off of whatever facts people can find and narratives they put together. So it would be very interesting to see what some of those really were like and what was accurate.
What is your favorite hobby or way to relax?
I have a couple that keep me sane. I like to play the guitar. So there's always a guitar sitting out. And at the very worst, I pick it up and do something every day, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. And that's a good stress relief. And then our real, I guess I would call it our downtime, is like right before Thanksgiving until January 15th, where you work more of a normal schedule where you get weekends and most of the time. So my wife and I both like to hunt, and we have some land in a cabin down in southeast Iowa, close to where I grew up. It's more 5 miles north of Kisakwa. And so we spend a bunch of time down there during that time, and any time that we do get, we're down there outdoors and doing something in the woods.
Yeah, no, I can relate with that. It's probably the most peaceful thing is just being out in nature, and it seems like it's so calming to do that. We kind of dove into this next question already, and you gave us a lot of background. I'd like to come back to, you talk about luck a lot, but I can tell you're an extremely motivated individual. And you see this with kids and decisions they make and how that sets them up for doors and opportunities. And, the phrase is out there, and I can't even say who has said it. I know it's not an original quote with me, but, like the harder you work, the luckier you get. What's some of your mantra behind all of that?
I mean, that's pretty much right on. And not only the harder you work, but I would add in the reason I got lucky, I said I got lucky and I did, but the reason they hired me at Upper Iowa at that age was because of how I handled myself the 4 years that I was at the college. You know, I did well in school, helped out in the community, was married, had a family. They knew me well enough to know that they could trust me to do a good job, and I guess I was, in their eyes, probably a lot more mature for my age than most at that age, and they knew my passion for you know, the things that I love, and that I would do it right, and I would do it in a first class way. That's why. So those decisions, all those decisions that you make, plus the hard work that you put in, that's what is going to help you with the luck, because, you know, the more you do things right, the better things come your way. And it's just the way it works.
Right. A follow up to that, you work with a lot of kids. And of course, probably fortunate for you, you've not made the headlines like some of the other, you know, sometimes, and I don't know, there's just other sports in colleges where kids get in trouble some. And I don't know if it's just that baseball has a different breed of kids, or maybe you've been able to manage it well enough so it doesn't hit the public eye. And you probably have less players than, let's say, like football and some of that. How do you kind of manage that? Because there are kids that are going to go out and just make bad decisions. And there are kids that recover from that. So back to putting in the hard work and doing the right thing, you also have to help kids, mentor them to get on the right path and to stay focused. And a lot of that, when we interview people here, if they've often, a coach is very influential in where they're at later in life. Right. Help bring some levity and grounding to their life.
Right. Well, I think my answer to this is going to answer one or two of the other questions, but I really believe that it's important to try to pick the right kids for your team, which help eliminate what you're talking about. It's not perfect, and kids are going to make mistakes for sure, but our standards are high. Our kids are held accountable, regardless of whether they're the star player or the guy that's the last walk-on the team. And we're dealing with 40 guys and sometimes 40, 44. So that's a lot of guys. And and then I've got 27 managers, and I've got, you know, other support staff. So it's a big group. And everybody in that group has to buy into our standards. And so in the recruiting process, trying to find the right fit is really important. And being honest with that kid before he makes the decision to come, you know, play at Iowa or any of the other places I've been, that we just don't take great players if we feel like they're not going to be a fit as an individual. And, you know, we're constantly looking for unselfish, humble kids that will overachieve. You know, I've done this almost 40 years, and I've never seen a kid overachieve that wasn't humble. I've seen kids do really well and be really good players that weren't humble, but they never overachieved. Right. They played to where they were. And the way the rules are in recruiting now, it makes it more and more difficult for us to get to know the kid as well as you would like before you commit him or get him. But I would tell you that when a kid does make a mistake, he is held accountable. We don't brush it under the table. We don't try to cover it up. We don't go defend guys that made bad decisions or bad mistakes. But we also try to help them, and we try to help them so that they don't make that decision again, whatever that decision was. And I am, you know, very proud, and I'm not going to really boast about it because it could happen to any one of us at any time. I mean, kids make decisions that don't make sense. I've had kids in past that blew my mind that they got in trouble for that, and it wasn't their character, or they were drinking, or they were doing something stupid that that helped them make the bad decision. But depending on what the offense was, I mean, we have it all in writing that this is what's going to happen, and we're not looking the other way. And but then trying to help them and trying to get them help if they need it.
Right, a clear picture.
Important.
Yeah, a real clear picture and understanding of what's going to happen and how it works. So they have a clear understanding.
Up front, and they signed the form, and this is. I mean, I'm more old school with that, and our culture is amazing. That's what Iowa baseball is. People always think it's magic baseball stuff, which I do think we're the best in the country at developing baseball players. But the biggest reason we were able to have success and have success early was that we built a culture of caring and caring for your teammates more than yourself, and outworking people, and attitude and energy, and playing hard, but also doing it in the classroom, in the community, in the weight room, in your diet, in your rest. It's a total program, and getting kids that bought in, the first year here at Iowa was crucial to making that happen. And a lot of coaches I see make this mistake all the time. They'll get hired at a place that wasn't winning, and all I hear them say is, "Oh, the other coach left me all these rotten players, and these aren't my guys," and blah, 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 blah. That's a surefire way to fail as a coach coming in and trying to take over a program. And you see it all the time. What we did was said, "Hey, I don't care what anybody said about you guys. We're going to love you just like we recruited you, and everybody that wants to be a part of what we're doing, you're welcome. And if you don't like it, we can have a meeting, and you can go, and we'll help you find another place." That's how we do it. I took over 1, 2, 3, 4 programs, and that's how I did it at every stop. And boom, we were able to hit the ground running because of that.
So real quickly, I just want to clarify before we move on, we kind of dropped it, but you went to Upper Iowa, spent some time there, and built a good program there.
Yeah.
And then you made a few jumps before you came to Iowa. Is that correct? And when you did come to Iowa, it was a struggling program there as well at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was at Upper Iowa for 12 years. And like I said, in 10 of those, I also coached football. But, they hadn't had a winning season in any sport in 16 years. And in year 3, we won our first conference championship and went to a regional. And then in 1996, we went to the Division III College World Series, which was a big deal, for us and for the school and that team. But we had several championships in regionals. The cool thing was that as soon as we had that first winning season, basketball started winning, football started winning. It's kind of like Roger Bannister in the 4-minute mile. People said you couldn't do it, but once somebody did, everybody started to do it.
Right.
So it was a really cool 10-year period there of success at a place that I love and a place that means a lot to me. So to be a part of that was really special. And then I took the job at Northern Iowa in 2000. And I was there for 10 years, and it's a long story. We for another day, but another program that wasn't funded. We had less than half the scholarships of everybody in the Missouri Valley, and that was when Wichita State and Creighton and Missouri State were like really rolling. I mean, great league, and we won the only baseball Missouri Valley tournament championship in 2001, and went to a regional, and then we had to raise all the money and park cars at the Unidome and the things we had to do there just to have a program and try to compete. Really molded me into the coach I am today. I was there when they dropped the program, and that was an ugly situation. One of the toughest things I've ever been a part of. And then I was really fortunate. I ended up getting Ed Service was the coach at Creighton, and we were good friends. And I was going to Creighton as a volunteer hitting coach to stay in the game. And Rachel was able to transfer her job over to Council Bluffs. And on the trip over, the coach that was at Indiana State called and asked if he said he got the job at Washington and wanted to know if I'd be interested in maybe going with him. And I said, for sure, but I'd rather be the head coach at Indiana State. And after a long process, I got hired at Indiana State in like August 18th, so right before school started. And I was back in the business and back as a head coach, and had 4 fantastic years in Terre Haute. I loved it there. Great people in that town, great baseball town. And we had a really good run, and including like a 40-plus win season. We won the only Missouri Valley championship at that time. They actually won it last year for the second time, but it was the first outright championship in school history. Had some really good players, some guys that are playing in the big leagues today right now that we had on those teams. And then that's when I was hired after year 4. I was hired here at Iowa. In 2004, I interviewed for the job when I was at Northern Iowa and didn't get the job. And then, 10 years later, Gary Barta hired me to come here. Mm-hmm. And this is my 11th season.
Separately, I'm Gage.
And I'm Bontrager.
Together, we are Gage Bontrager Consulting.
We work on changing your mindset,
Developing leaders,
building systems and processes,
helping you grow personally and professionally
to achieve the success that you want personally and professionally.
however you choose to define success for you.
Reach out to us and follow us on social media or look us up on the website, and that will put you on a path to achieve what is missing in your life.
Thanks for watching this episode of Mindset Growth Podcast.
Fun fact, I was at UNI at school in 2000. So when you came there, I was enjoying all that UNI had to offer. But I did not make it to a baseball game, and I wish I would have.
Well, that's because we played at Riverfront Stadium, and you had to go, 8 miles to go over there. That was a challenging job, but that was when they dropped the program. When you're young and you're pushing hard and you're thinking that you're overachieving and you're doing well for the department, you're raising all this money, and you're thinking that people are appreciating it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just like, now we're just going to drop it.
Wow,
And
that's
it was kind of the cold hard facts of life for me, that life's not fair and you don't always get rewarded for what you do, and
Right.
you have to go through adversity. Nobody's ever been really, really successful and not fought through adversity. And that was it for me. That was the holy cow. For 10 years, I've done, not just me, but all of us had done so much to make that program go and compete against the teams we had to compete with. And you just thought that people understood and appreciated that. And then it was just the harsh realization that, outside of your circle, not many people really care that much.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier about through the recruiting process, you don't really get to know the kids too well until after they've been recruited. But can you talk to us about what the recruiting process looks like? I know we've heard before, like certain things that coaches will look for, how they treat maybe their parents, or are there some of those things that you look at that's besides talent based?
Yeah, for sure. And we have youth camps, a lot throughout the course of the year, and we have showcase camps 4 or 5 times a year. And I tell all of those kids this, okay, number one, if you don't have a hop in your step, if you don't have a love for the game that you can see without having to yell at you to do it, if you don't want to fly around and have a great attitude and all those things I said, it won't. If you do have those things, it won't guarantee we recruit you. But if you don't have those things, it will guarantee we don't recruit you, because it takes a certain level of ability to play here. So what we do is we gather as many of the guys that we think we would have a chance to get that have the talent, the ability to help us win games and play here. and then go to work on trying to pick the ones in that group that fit our culture and fit what we represent. The stuff I talked about earlier about being humble, but like even with like you said about the parents, I mean, that's obviously that's a huge red flag. You know, if the kid is not treating his parents with respect, especially in front of a coach. But and you don't see that one very. I don't know that I've ever seen that happen. What we look for is getting to the games early and watching them play catch, watching how they handle failure, watching how they handle themselves when they walk at a guy or give up a home run or strike out. You know, are their parents hovering parents? Are they running to the dugout and talking to their kid in between innings, or bringing them candy or bringing them, you know, drinks and stuff like that? But really, it's just watching that kid and how he interacts. And then the other thing that we do is try to reach out to other coaches or PE teachers at the school that are not the baseball coach, because they will usually tell you the real story.
Right.
And that's a good one that always works out, because the game has changed so much. It used to be totally through the high school coach, and now it's more even with the travel ball coach.
Right.
Not so much in Iowa as every other state, because Iowa plays summer baseball, so you still have a lot of communication with the high school coach. But in some states, like take Florida, you would think that they play 50 games, right? They play 20 games, and the rest is travel ball for their summer schedule. So you're dealing with a lot of travel ball, coaches, and that can be interesting too, because it's kind of a crazy world out there, and you got guys that are not in it for the right reasons, and guys who are one to broker this and broker that. And now, our world has changed so much. I mean, virtually every good player, and I guess I'll explain to you guys, like, we don't really recruit guys that we don't think have a chance to play professionally. Does that make sense? I mean, that's where the program's at.
At least they need to have the talent to at least hit that marker to start with.
Yeah, that you can look at them and say, this kid in 3 years is, because in baseball, the junior years are draft year. So is this kid going to be a potential draft by his junior year? And that would be just one of the things you look at up front. But now all of those kids have agents. I mean, all of those really good kids have agents. And then in the past, a kid would come to college. I would have a chance to educate him and his family. I would say, okay, here's what you do. When agents start reaching out, we've got a list of questions. You bring 3 of them in that you kind of like. You interview them. Have them come in, and we get a conference room that you can interview them right here at the school. And then, the kind of scumbag slime ball guys, they won't come in and do that. But now they can get in before anybody has a chance to educate them. And a lot of these guys have agents before they get to college. I'd say the majority of them do. And so you're not only dealing with the coaches, you're dealing with agents, and now with NIL, it's a dirty world out there with a lot of cheating and a lot of crazy stuff going on. And not just the recruiting goes to, for us, it's recruit the high school kid to get him to commit to Iowa. Then you got to recruit him to not sign professionally out of high school. Then you got to recruit him to stay and not leave to a school that's offering him a bunch of money under the table through his agent. I mean, it's a crazy world we live in right now.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say we kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, we do want to touch on that. My question, I guess, though, is what I've seen coaching USSSA is that a lot of dads get involved, and they get so involved that they even destroy the team there already to make sure they're 10 and 12-year-old. And there's kids my kid played with and other kids I've worked with where at 8 years old, the kid could throw strikes all day long. 4 years later, they're just hitting dingers off of him because that's all he's ever done is throwing it down the pipe, and they're hitting him, and he's not developed. the other kids developed at a different stage, and then they start to sit down. If they can be the head coach, they'll start setting down the kids that are rising. And so there's a lot of stats then. And then usually their wife is over there taking the stats. Yep. And that gets altered a lot because of the opportunities. You can clearly see, you know all about where you put them in the order of the batting order, where you all of a sudden can control a lot of stats, or they're just inaccurate. They just don't keep accurate stats on purpose. Nope. So I can see where that's a big mess. One thing that was most fun a couple of years for me was when I could get in with a group of us that wanted to coach. The parents were sat down before the season. If you want to bring your kids something to drink or eat, it was going to be before once they hit the field, you were away from the dugout. I mean, that stopped. There was no more communication. We don't care if they got hurt and we come motion you over, fine. But beyond that, you're not talking to that kid. It's over. But I think that was, I think there's a lot of life lessons in that. I think in a lot of ways people coddle. And unfortunately, what I've seen is they say most kids will play at a high level for about 7 years. And this might be the question you were talking about, Heather. But I have seen kids, they'll start at 8 years old, and by the time they get into high school, they're already kind of burning out, and they don't even want to go past that. So
no, you're right. You're dead on, Gary. I mean, I have my two older daughters both played college softball, and so we've been through the softball circuit and have, we're in it right now with our youngest daughter, and that circuit, I would tell you, is even crazier than the boys' side, but similar. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just crazy stuff, and it sounds like you did it, the right way, which is it should be all about development. I mean, that doesn't mean you're not trying to win. Okay, that's where people get confused. You're trying to win, but you're trying to teach fundamentals, and you're trying to have guys play positions, and you're trying to have fun. You're trying to deal with failure in a positive way. You're trying to be a great teammate, and what can I do to help my team win? What can I do to help instead of worrying about myself? Those are hard to find, but they're out there, and that's what you should be looking for. Like my brother coached a travel softball team for years. And that's exactly how he did it. And his goal, he told the parents up front, the goal is to have all these girls still wanting to play in high school.
Right.
And then so, but parents are crazy because they get caught up in winning. And we would go to, say, Kansas City, and the coach is just screaming at girls 10 years old, 11 years old, and berating them and acting like an idiot. And I just said to my brother one time, I said, if he ever acted like that, I'd be out the door. He goes, you know what, Rick said, the crazy thing is we'll get home because we travel. He's from Ottumwa, and we just bring our daughter because at that time we was in Cedar Falls. So I wasn't there all the time. And he said, there will be parents that come up to me and say, you need to do that. You need to coach like that guy so we win. And he said, that's the crazy part of it. And he said, I'll try to defend it and say, but those girls aren't going to be playing in high school. They're going to quit.
Right.
They're not, there might be two that make it off that team. And we're going to have, and here's my, list of kids who have gone on not only to play in high school, but all these girls have gone on and played in college because they had a positive experience. And they also know how to deal with failure in a positive way. And they know how to be a good teammate, and they know how to play multiple positions. So when they do get on a good team, they aren't pigeonholed into one. And to your point, all of this talk about the parents adjusting and doing those types of things, like the stats that we look at, you're looking at strikeouts, walks, which you can't lie on those.
No.
And then some of the power numbers. But ours is all graded by video or going to watch them play. Or a scout sending us a word saying, but we're to a point now where you can't really take a guy's sight unseen. I mean, you literally have to go see every kid play because even the video can be doctored to a degree, and anybody can have a good day.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of experienced my daughter was in travel ball for several teams, and like you said, we went down to Kansas City and they had great experience, but some of those parents are just, there was a lady with a cowbell on the other team. And so it's like, it's kids. These girls out here are 10. But
Yep.
what I wanted to ask you about was you kind of touched on the NILs and how that's made its way into college and our athletes. We see Caitlin, she's got a new one all the time, and that's amazing for her. I know it has to put a lot of pressure on her, though. So mentally, for your athletes, everything that they're dealing with these days, how do you help them through stuff like that?
I guess in our program, that's really what it's always been, is how to focus on the things you can control. That's the message they hear all the time. You know, we break from huddles, can control you. You control you. We don't play the opponent. We play what we can control. And that's, if you look at like our program, we've been really ultra consistent. And we've had more comeback wins than any team in the Big Ten the last 10 years. And the reason is we just keep playing. We just play the game. And we try to focus on the things you can control. And we have a system in place for just playing in the next pitch. We call it like the 15-second funnel. You have 15 seconds in between pitches, either as a pitcher, a fielder, whatever. We got concentration circles on the infield that we imagine that when we're losing it, we step out. It's okay. But when we step in, we're dialed in. We don't try to do too much. We just try to get our guys. I mean, a big part of baseball, because of the failure that happens in baseball. I mean, baseball is a sport that's cruel, man. It's hard to play at an elite level. You're going to make mistakes. You watch it every night on the Sports Center. I mean, major leaguers, balls going through their legs, they drop a fly ball. You know, strikeouts, all those things, walks, give up home runs. You have to have a great plan on how you are going to deal with failure in a positive way. You got to have something to hang your hat on when the hits the fan, because it's going to. And the teams that are the most successful deal with that stuff in a positive way and not a negative way. And, you know, I send letters even to our parents at Christmas time, just explaining that we're a process program, that if you're mad because, or not mad, but you're giving your kid a hard time because he was 0 for 4 in the game, after the game, you know, when we go back to the hotel, in our eyes, he had a great day because he walked once, he had a sac fly, he moved a runner, he had some good at-bats, he had a line drive caught. So in our world, he was 3 for 4 with quality at-bats, and he's being patted on the back because of that. And if you're chasing hits or chasing results, that's selfish, and that doesn't work in a team-oriented, process-based program. All of our rewards are based on things that help the team and things that will help the guy be successful when he's struggling. So our whole system is taught from day one around that. So the stuff you're talking about, it just continues. It's like, okay, we've got really 4 high-profile guys on our team this year that, to your point, they have a ton of pressure on them, perceived pressure, because of the draft. If, you know, the better year they have, the higher they're going to draft, the more money they're going to make, all of those things. But if they're focused on anything other than doing whatever they need to do to help the team win, they will fail. And hearing that over and over, starting in August when they come to school, it's like, I've done this 37 years. I've never seen that approach work, trying to do this or trying to, or listening to a scout or listening to an agent or listening to somebody say, I need you to do this behind your coach's back, because just throw it as hard as you can, because we just need to see you throw as hard as you can. If they don't buy in to whatever it takes to help the team, one pitch at a time, I don't give a crap what anybody thinks of me or says about me. They will struggle and they will fail. It'll collapse on it. It'll be too big. And that's the message they're hearing in our program, day in, day out, day in, day out.
But that's life lessons completely.
Yes.
And you see people, and I'm going to tie this back into our just professional and business communities. You see people out there that are beating their chest in business and making it all about themselves, not focusing on employees, clients, and other even competitors. I will promise you we see it all the time. They will not succeed as somebody who goes back to that humble that you had earlier, good work ethic, treats people right. But the number one thing we talk about all the time is you got to understand what's your mission, what's your purpose, why are you here, and what are you trying to, if you have a clear narrative of what you're trying to accomplish, and it sounds like you really integrate that into your program so these kids understand, because what you're really teaching them, most of them are not going to make it and be on baseball cards and get traded. Like, kids aren't going to be buying their baseball cards and stuff like that. But you are setting them up to take on high profile positions in companies and organizations and still be very successful in life, or go on and coach.
No, and you're right, Gary. And I had that call. I get calls all the time from businesses and employers because they know our guys are going to have that when they get there. Did one yesterday, in fact. They called me. And we talk about it with our guys periodically. To your point, all of them want to make it, and all of them, and that's great. But all of you are not. But here's the deal. Adhering to the things that we talk about, having a strong mental game, dealing with failure in a positive way, being able to just play the next pitch, that is going to give you the resources when you get into the real world and you are going up against guys who have never had to deal with this. And in a baseball world, we were in a hotel 21 out of 28 days and they still have to do a good job at school. It's different. We're playing 3-game series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're getting back at 2 a.m. and then doing it all again the next week. And it's just different than the other sports. And savvy employers, they know that the baseball kids, they have to have it down. They have to have their life in order. They have to have the skills to manage things in a tough situation way better than most. So anyway, we had that talk the other day. You guys are going to dominate those guys when you get in your real job. You'll kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. 100%. There's so much more.
Well, we had another question about how you help your athletes when the pressure is getting to them. I think that you touched on that a little bit, but is there anything that you would like to add to that?
I guess I'd just say that one thing we did when we got here was build a strong leadership program within the program, because the best teams are managed from inside the locker room. And in the world we live in today, that is really hard to find, because if I'm a player and even though I'm a captain and I say something to a kid in today's world, a lot of times that kid wants to fight you. He wants to have a conflict. And each year that we've been here, we talk about this all the time with each team. Everyone on our team, we want to be leaders. We want all of them to shoot to be voted as a captain by their peers. And then the captains in our program are not the guys telling guys what to do, but they're the voice. If someone doesn't feel comfortable coming to me, then the captain comes to me. We meet with them each week to get a pulse on things. Are we doing something that they perceive as silly or stupid? We'll change it. We need everything from how do you think the meals went on the road? Did everybody feel like it was what we needed? Just so we keep everything going. Everybody's communicating, but building that leadership program and challenging them to put our culture in a better place every year, throw our record out the window. But how did we handle the leadership, the team, the culture? Is it in a strong place? Did you leave it in a better place when you left for the next group of captains and leaders? And to this point, we're 11, 10 for 10, and this is an 11. And we've gone through some this year that no one expected. And to this point, man, we have handled that part of it really well. There's no finger pointing. We've had some collapses that we didn't see. No one's blaming. Everyone's pulling for each other. Everybody's pulling together and supporting one another. So that the message there is, they're going to hear it from the coaches. If you're struggling, things are going bad, whatever, we're just going to keep reminding them that, next pitch, just keep playing, play our systems that we put in place, because we try to put systems in place for all of that. But it's easier said than done in the heat of the battle. But then I will meet with the captains each Monday, and we will pinpoint guys. And I say, I need you guys to really pick Joey up, and let him know that this is the way it goes. Michael, tell him about your sophomore year when you were struggling and how you just kept fighting and made it. So we do it in a roundabout way. I have a way to get to those guys, and then our entire coaching staff is is on board and doing the same thing. But it's just the consistent message. And if you're a process-driven program, you really got to hold yourself to a high standard as the leader, as the manager, the head coach, because the minute that I make a mistake and let them think that I'm making a bigger deal about winning this game, you'll never hear me say, we need to win this game, or we need to win this series, or we need to do this. That's not what we do, because as soon as I do that, they're going to say, oh, he's full of crap. He talks process, but he really just wants to win the game, blah, blah, blah. And they say, for every time I make a mistake and say win the game, I got to say 400 process-driven statements for them to start believing me again. So as I've gotten older, I've gotten pretty good at really, really sticking to it. And then lastly, I guess I would say, when you have an awesome culture, it's not magic each year. It starts all over. Even though you have a lot of the same guys, it's a different team. Mm-hmm. And the minute that you let your guard down, or I let my guard down, or our staff lets our guard down, 11 years of hard work and intent can go away in 2 weeks. Right. It can, and that's what happens in a lot of programs, because it's hard work. It's not easy to really be a true focus, process, culture-driven program, because it is every day. It's what it is. It's what your program really is. Right. Mm-hmm. And it can be tiring, especially with the recruiting, and you're on the road, you're doing this, and you can say, God, I don't want to deal with this. And you do. If you don't, it'll collapse in 2-3 weeks.
Right. Well, I feel like you should speak to companies, and I don't know if you do that now or not, but I think you've got a future in it, because one thing I like, and I know all sports can do that, baseball is just the one that's closest to my heart. I just see all the parallels of how that transitions into regular life and how people approach life. It's not, I can promise you, for all the kids you're getting, there are kids that are better that are never even playing the game anymore by the time they get to college. They're burned out mentally. They maybe weren't there and they weren't prepped. And those things can happen. Kids, we as humans have different things that we like more than others. But I want to take this time to really thank you, Rick, for what you've done for the University of Iowa, and for what you're doing in teaching these kids really life skills. Baseball is just a tool in which you're doing that. It's been something that's made us as a community proud of you. And when I visit with you this morning, I think from the clients that Heather and I work with, we can see your morals and how you manage that team just fits right in with us in really our philosophy that we help companies with. So I want to thank you for joining us on Mindset Growth Podcast. Look forward to coming out and watching some games this year, and wish you nothing but the best season possible. Can you tell people that are listening to this where they can follow you, and where they can maybe follow the team and see some of the stats as the year progresses?
Well, first of all, thanks, Gary, for those kind words. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on your podcast. Heather, thank you. Mm-hmm. Basically, there's all the social media. There's a site for baseball. Iowa Baseball has a Twitter site. It has a Instagram site, and then all of the stuff on our website, from camps to what's going on, to news, to statistics. You can follow everything. And then if anybody, one thing I do to try to help keep our alumni and our fan base informed and really just locked into the fact that we're playing, when so much other stuff is going on. I've always done a newsletter that I personally write each week, and I send out to whoever wants to be on that list. So if anybody's listening, my email is rick-heller@iowabaseball.com. Just send me an email and let me know you want to be on my newsletter. And that gives you rundowns of each game, little insights on scouting, what's going on, where you can watch the games, if anything's going on from a fundraising or a golf outing or that type of thing. And then all of the links to all the video stuff that's going on with our program is going to be included in that. So if anybody wants to be on my list, we're probably 1,000 or so right now. And, I just, something that I've always done, even the other schools, and it's just been great because it's brought back a lot of alumni to the program that
Right.
weren't there for a long time. So anyway, I just think it's a nice touch to help out and take the time to do it. In fact, it's funny how things work, but we've been rained out the last 2 Tuesdays, which is a bad deal in baseball because it's an everyday game, and not getting those pitchers out there scares you the next time they have to go out there. But the weather is the weather. But usually I have the newsletter done when we play the Tuesday game, but you feel like you put it off when you have extra time, and so I've got to get it knocked out today and get it out either tonight or tomorrow morning. But I always get it out during the season.
Well, I'm sure you'll have 2 new email followers on that. Friend I coached with was an Iowa alumni, and I'm friends with a couple other alumnus that came through there before your program was there. But it's always been fun to visit about Iowa baseball. So thank you again, and look forward to meeting you later down the road.